cows. I really feel like I should get up and be giving an Advent sermon this morning because it's actually snowing outside and it's beginning to look like Christmas on January 10th. And I look down in the first service and Sally Hayes, right about where the Mustard family is sitting, she's wearing this shirt that has a cat on it and it says Meowie Christmas. And I'm like, what's happening right now? I'm pretty sure that I'm supposed to be giving this sermon, the New Year's sermon, and not another Christmas sermon. But they said that it was January 10th and that we were supposed to begin the New Year's series. And we like to talk about finances at New Year's because we know a lot of you have resolutions and things that you want to improve on. And if we think about, okay, how do we talk about life change? Because if you're a part of us for long, and if you're a part of our Sunday services or our small groups or our ministries or any combination of those, we hope it's all three, then we think it's always fun. You did a good job playing bass, by the way.
Just plug it in.
Well, I plugged it in, it became unplugged. No, you can't plug it in.
All right, try now.
Can you hear me better? Okay, maybe I should talk more? Okay, all right. I got mixed reviews. Can you hear me better? Yes, no, I don't know. Well, we've covered the gamut. There are no other options. I have no idea. Well, okay, I can hear myself better now also. Okay, so we talk about finances because we know that you have New Year's resolutions, and maybe these are about relationships. And your finances change the way you do relationships. It can take less stress off of those relationships or off of your marriage. We know that your finances can change the way you feel about yourself. Some of you are frustrated because you feel like you have failed because of your finances. Or some of you know that you don't want your kids to inherit the money habits you've had, but you don't know how to teach them because you aren't far along that road yourself. And so we know that when we talk about money, we are talking about a lot of these things too. God wants us to have a different relationship to money than what the world wants us to have. Ann mentioned that I teach, and that means that sometimes I teach part-time, which means sometimes I'm not actually, there are days where I don't teach, there are days I don't have to go in, so I'm at home at weird times, and this means I get to watch The Price is Right. And for one thing, it is weird that we have a game show that gives you more money based on how much you know about how much stuff costs. Has anyone ever thought that's weird? I was like, okay, you clearly shop a lot. You clearly have things. We're going to give you a car. But there are commercials that you don't see any other time of day except maybe late at night that come on during The Price is Right. So maybe you've seen this one. I got a text from Matt, my friend in the booth, that said, okay, the J.G. Wentworth, that was too long for a Wi-Fi password. But this is one of them. You have people poking their head out a window saying, it's my money and I need it now. And just people yelling that on the street. There's a Viking singing this in an operatic tone on the bus, as though this is the cry of the city. It's my money and I need it now. I'm also glad that Christmas is over a little bit. I love Christmas. If you go to my house, you'll know I really love Christmas because the decorations are still up. But what I don't like are the commercials. Because the commercials are just buy stuff. This is, they're almost saying, this is how you measure your value. Do you have the new iPhone? Because that shows that you're with it. That shows that you have money to spend. You just spent your money on that, but it shows that you have money because you have this now. Or the cars. First of all, if you get a car for Christmas, it looks like you'd have to finance that giant bow they put on it in addition to the car. It doesn't seem like a good idea. Or they say you have to have the clothes if you want to appear with it. And then we begin idolizing people that are famous for no other reason than they're rich. And then we feel like we have to imitate this. And so we go, after Christmas, we go onto Facebook, and then we post, and we see everyone else posting, these are my favorite presents, this is what I got. And we're like, I got socks. I don't want to post socks on Facebook. What do I get to put on Facebook? And the truth is, they probably got socks too, but socks didn't make the Facebook cut. So here's what I'd like to see. Everyone post your Christmas socks after Christmas next year on Facebook. And then it'll be like, well, I guess everyone's not getting like iPhones and cars and other big expensive stuff. Because we can measure our lives by what people post on Facebook. And we can say, you know what? I'm not as valuable as them because I don't have that. Or maybe we take our money and we hoard it. And we have kind of like the Scrooge McDuck giant money bin. And we have all this money and we keep it so we can do stuff that money's not meant for. Like, I like to dive around in it like a porpoise. Or we keep it all in there because it makes us feel safe. And all of this is taking money and it's making it things money was never supposed to be. Money was never meant to make us feel valuable. Money was never meant to make us feel safe. And in fact, money's never really meant to be ours. My goal is kind of by the end of this service, you're wishing that it was one of those services where I'm like, just tithe, just give 10% to church. Because I'm about to say something that's much harder than that. Because the truth is this. That money isn't yours. That's God money. And he trusts us with it. So we see that's much bigger. Some of you are like, please just do the 10%. I'd rather hear the 10%. But the truth is, this is God's money, and he trusts you to do what he would do with it. We see this in the parable of the talents, or mine actually calls it the parable of the 3 servants, because the New Living Translation doesn't say talents. It says bags of silver. And so when we say bags of silver, this isn't like a little pouch of silver. This is what I was imagining, a little pouch of silver. A talent is, I was looking this up a little bit. It's a big bag, okay? It's about 30 pounds. So we're not talking about a little bit amount of money here. But it starts off, again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. I want to pause. I want to talk a little bit about the kingdom of heaven. This is a special grouping of parables called the kingdom of heaven parables. And we would say, because we are disciples of God, we want to live the way Jesus wants us to live, we're kind of a part of the kingdom of heaven. And so there's that already. We're already a part of the kingdom of heaven. This is how we need to be modeling our lives. This is what we should be like. But there's a little bit of a not yet to this also. You'll see rewards, and you'll talk about giving more responsibility to people, and some of that's now, and some of that's later. When we hear kingdom of heaven, a lot of the time we think of heaven, which is not a big jump. And so some of this may not happen on earth. And we just embrace that part of this parable. So he called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. Whose money? All right, so when we're talking about the master, if the kingdom of heaven is like this, who's the master? God, Jesus, you guys all passed Sunday school. I wanted to make, Chris has been working with our children a long time, and I wanted to make sure he felt comfortable. So I threw out a couple of Sunday school questions. I got you, Chris. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, remember, big bags of silver, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in order of their abilities. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole and hid the master's money. After a long time, the master returned from a trip and called them to give an account of how they had used. Oh, great. See, it does work, Aaron. Sometimes you got to pause longer. Yeah. His money. The servant to whom he had entrusted 5 bags came forward with 5 more and said, Master, you gave me 5 bags to invest, and I have earned 5 more. And the master says, he is full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. And then the servant with 2 bags comes. Same story. You gave me 2 bags. I worked and I got 2 more bags. The master is full of praise. Well done. You've been faithful in handling this small amount. I'll give you more responsibilities. Let's go celebrate together. And then the servant with the 1 bag of silver came, and he said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man. Harvesting crops you did not plant, and gathering crops you did not cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here is your money back. But the master replied, You wicked and lazy servant. If you know I harvested crops I didn't plant, and you know I gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least then I could have gotten some interest back on it. Then he ordered, Take the money from this servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant into darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Gnashing of teeth, another in the running for the Wi-Fi password. Things escalated quickly here, didn't they? We were doing really good with those first 2 servants, right? And then things went off the wheels. So in this next slide, this is actually something from Aaron's sermon last week. What we honor with our money becomes our God. So what did the first 2 servants honor with their money? Making more money, or why did they make more money? They made more money because they wanted to honor their master. My master wouldn't sit on this money. He would use this money. What did the 3rd servant value? His own fear. He didn't want to lose it, and so he took that money and he hid it. Because if you read what the 3rd servant says about the master, it doesn't sound like the master of the rest of the story, does it? The 3rd servant says, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant, and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money. Now, if you're someone that does this, I don't think you're going to say, hey, probably not going to trust your money to other people because they might try and do the same thing you're doing. And you're certainly not going to say, you did a great job. I'm going to give you more. Let's go celebrate. And the master actually calls the servant out on this. He said, if you knew I was this kind of person and that I would expect something when you got back, you'd at least do the minimum and get me some interest on it. So you didn't even act the way you should have acted if you thought I was this person. Because the 3rd servant has a distorted view of the master. This is not the master that in Matthew 6 says, no one can serve 2 masters. You will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. This is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life, whether you have enough food and drink or enough clothes to wear. Isn't life more than food? And your body more than clothing? Look at the birds. They don't plant or harvest or store food in barns, for your heavenly Father feeds them. And aren't you more valuable to Him than they are? Can all your worries add a single moment to your life? So don't worry about these things, saying, what will we eat? What will we drink? What will we wear? These things dominate the thoughts of the unbelievers. But your heavenly Father already knows all of your needs. Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and He will give you everything you need. And so to do what we're going to do in this next slide, we've got to be fearless and trust that God is going to take care of us. Because what we're called to do is be stewards. And a steward he's kind of the second in command But at the same time, he's not down the line of, he's not the lineage. He's not the next in succession. So it's not like a president, vice president type situation where if the president dies, the vice president takes over. This would be like the president saying, I'm going on vacation for a while. I need you to take over and be president for a few months. And then when I get back, the country had better still be running, and all the things I wanted to do had better still be happening. So the master is going to come back. Stewardship is caring for and using what isn't yours in a way that will please the master when he returns for it. And this is why I say that it's not our money. This is a very different way to think about money. This is not the, it's my money and I need it now. This is not that I need the money so I can feel safe, or I need the money so I can feel valuable. This is honoring God over money. And this is about more than money, too. This is about your talents. This is about your gifts. This is about what you already have. Money is just potential, what you might buy. This is about what you have now. No one says, this money isn't mine. I'm just taking care of it for someone else. I'm using it the way someone else would. In fact, we kind of have a different thing that we say when the boss is gone or when the master leaves for a long time. We tend to say, when the cat's away, and that's a very different message than stewardship. And if you don't buy into this, visit any classroom when there is a substitute teacher. Because if the teacher is not there, immediately they know, oh, we can goof off. This person doesn't have control. We don't respect this person yet. And so, while this person's gone, we're going to make the job really hard for this person. Rather than saying, you know what? My teacher would want me to pay attention and to treat this person as though it was my teacher. If you use your money for yourself or to feel secure, you are not honoring God, you're honoring your fear. It's fear of running out of money or fear of how others will see you. And ultimately, this is fear that God isn't who he says he is. This is fear that the value that God gives me, I don't feel that value. Or when God says he's going to take care of me, I don't think he's going to take care of me. One of the members of our church, who's our children's pastor for several years, Melody, is in Swaziland right now with the Peace Corps. And she views this as a mission opportunity for her. And we recently heard that she was doing something out of country and she came back to Swaziland. It's 105 degrees in Swaziland right now. We are whatever the opposite of 105 degrees is. And the big jugs of water are almost empty. And it's gotten so bad where she is that they've actually had to pull the Peace Corps out and say, we're going to go take you over here until they get this resolved. And so I get the fear that God isn't going to take care of you. I understand that. Because to an extent, it doesn't seem like God's taking care of what's going on in Swaziland right now, does it? And then I have to think about stewardship. And am I using my money for what God would use it for, if that's a situation in Swaziland right now? It's been a long time since I actually heard this statistic, so it may not be as true as it was then. But with what we tend to spend in Christmas, we could almost solve the world water crisis. And if you feel that pang, I'm sorry, and I feel it too. Because sometimes we don't let God work because we don't get stewardship entirely right. Or maybe you've heard churches warp stewardship this way. And they say, it's not your money, it's our money. We need it to build buildings that will glorify God. because of how big they are, because of how pretty they are, because I want to work at a church that will fit a lot of people into it so I can say I brought a lot of people to church, or so that I can build a big buttery statue of Jesus on 75, because they really need to know who it is we worship in case the crosses weren't clear enough. Or what? Okay, yeah, that's the new one. That's great. When Jesus came, he came differently than $5 footlong Jesus. Paul describes it this way: though he was God, he did not consider equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being when he appeared in human form. He humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on the cross. And so we want to build these giant churches, these beautiful churches, and they are beautiful. We want to put everything inlaid with gold. And when God came down, he could have come down in glory. He could have come down with a heavenly army that said, everyone, obey me. Chariots, angels. And angels are scary because every time someone sees an angel in the Bible, the first word is, don't be scared. Which, if that's your messengers, I mean, I wouldn't feel like that would be the best messenger. Like, I'm not very scary. Some students in my first semester classes, they think I'm scary, but I never have to start class by going, don't be scared! And so he could have come that way. But instead, he came as a man that worked with his hands, a man that had calluses and scars, that would sweat and get stinky, and then go walk around on dusty streets. And that's who he was. There's a story from probably in the first year or two after Aaron was here about this room. And what we used to do on Sunday nights and on Wednesday nights, we would have an open gym for Fairborn in this room. Before that, this room was not used very much. Some of you remember those times. There was a Sunday school class that would meet in this room, and that was about it. This is really big for a Sunday school class. And you know what happens when you start using an area that you haven't used before? It gets messy. It gets messy fast. And when you got people running up and down and playing basketball, sometimes you get holes in the drywall. And when you get holes in the drywall, sometimes you get people asking, hey, we got holes in the drywall. Why are we letting them use this space? Why are we letting them mess up our space? And an old lady came up to Aaron and asked that. And Aaron said, where do you think they'd be on Sunday and Wednesday night if they weren't here? She said, well, why aren't we open every night then? Which is the great attitude to have. That is the stewardship attitude that we need. We have this building so we can use it. Love sharing that story. God wants us to use the money, the talents, the resources that we have to further his kingdom. But I don't want to leave you with just that, because that's kind of up here, abstract. What does that actually mean? What can I do for that? Well, a couple of things that I do think you can do. First thing, and we want to help you with this, is you need to get out of debt. You need to get out of debt because that is taking money that isn't yours and then making sure it's still not yours. And it's not even money you can use because someone else has it now. The second thing you need to do is use what you have. The reason why the master is angry with the third servant is not because he came up to him and said, Master, I tried to invest it and some things went south and I don't have it anymore. I really think he would have said, good try. You tried hard. You did something. You used what you have. And that's why we like to try new things here. And if you have some new things we can try, we want to hear about them. But also, we have a lot more than just money, don't we? You may be saying, you know what, I am a high school student. I'm a college student. You may be even younger and saying, I am a child. I am very small. And I don't have much money. You can imagine how stressful this is for me. And we want to say, you can still do stuff. So I was going to the dentist. This was about a year ago, and I know it was about a year ago because I have a dentist appointment Monday. So it's been about a year, and it was Christmas break, and as my wife will tell you, whenever I have like a lot of free time on my hands, I just start to get antsy. I start to worry about things. Like, you know, I start not liking where I am with my job, and I was kind of in that funk going to the dentist. You know, God and I had been tussling a little bit, and I just said, I just need to know that you're out there and you're taking care of me. I'm walking up to the dentist, and there's this little old lady. And it was, you know, we'd had a Sunday kind of like today. It's icy, it's cold, and it's icy and cold still on Monday morning, and she's slowly working her way across the parking lot. And so I kind of drag my feet, keeping an eye on her. I open the door for her, and she says, thank you. I can't do things like open the door for people much anymore, but I can pray for you. What can I pray for you this morning? What a great example of someone saying, I can't do this, but here's what I have. Here's what I can use. And being bold enough to ask that of a complete stranger. She knew exactly what it is she had, and she used it. She used it for God and answered a prayer. So you may say, okay, I buy into it, that it's not my money, that it's God's, that I need to do stuff with my money to honor God's kingdom. So does this mean I have to go find a refrigerator box, curl up behind Foy's, only drink water, and only eat ramen noodles? And then even just, not even boil the ramen noodles, just pour the pouch on it and then crunch it. I told Kelly I was going to say that, and she said, you'll get scurvy. Is this what that means? I don't think this is what that means. I do think there are things that if the church got this right, wouldn't be world problems. But at the same time, can you imagine what would happen if the church said, we're going to have solid families? And we're going to use our money to go make sure that my family has opportunities to bond. We're going to use our money to make sure that we can go out and my kids will go on youth trips so they can grow in their faith. We're going to use our money because, you know what, my wife and I, our relationship hasn't been what it should be, and I'm going to use my money to go to counseling so that we can get a stronger relationship. Or can you imagine a community that said, you know what, we're going to use our money or use our homes to host small groups? Because I have a big house, and I can fit more people in it. I can use this for God. Or even smaller things. You know, I have fantastic friendships and fantastic community that I've strengthened by playing games. And some people may say, would Jesus spend like $50 on a board game? And I'd say, you know what? If Jesus said, I can get non-Christian people in my house to play a board game and develop a relationship with them and love them this way a lot more easily than I can if I just keep asking them, when are you going to come to church? Come into church? I can strengthen my community, and I can get to know other people because I've spent money on these things that I'm now using to further God's kingdom. So I don't think this means we have to adopt a purely Spartan, bare minimum lifestyle. It means the things that we enjoy, we use for God. Here's the bottom line. AKA the next slide. Okay. God has given you a variety of gifts and talents. And He trusts you to use them to further His kingdom. How cool is that? It's not just that He gives us these things. It's that He then says, you know what? I trust you. I think that you will do a good job if I give you free rein. The greatest part of stewardship is not what it costs the steward, but it's what the steward gets to be involved in. He gets to lean back and say, you know what? I made a good decision there. Or I helped with that. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of that. It's knowing that while we may not have as much of what we want on earth, we're contributing to building something great in God's kingdom, despite fears or feelings of inadequacy that may hold us back. You pray with me? Father, thank you for what we have. Thank you for trusting us to further your kingdom. It is an honor to be a part of this work. I pray for wisdom as we ask and try and discern what you would use, how you would use our gifts, our talents, our money. Help us to trust you and not fear, so that we can get to heaven and hear you say, well done, good and faithful servant. Let's go celebrate. We stand and receive your blessing. Go boldly, wisely using what God has given you to further the work of his kingdom. Go in peace.